Good evening. Welcome to Carnegie Town Hall. I call this meeting to order. Our first order of business, we like to select a project that we've approved in the past where we feel the petitioner has done above and beyond an ordinary project. And presenting that one this evening will be Commissioner Sean.
Thank you, Ken. I think we have some images, but today we're talking about the University Center. The University Center is a 250-acre planned development district that was master planned in 2006. The purpose of a PD is to promote flexibility, performance criteria, and encourage innovative development that is sensitive to surrounding land uses and to the natural environment. In the case of the University Center PD, it was developed with the intention to provide for well-designed education and research facilities. There is an emphasis on the quality of the development with regard to its building design, landscaping, setbacks, and site arrangements in order to be compatible with adjacent existing and future land uses. In fact, this was the first location of the runabout in town. That's very much what focused the overall planning of this development was around that runabout, and has proved to be very successful in keeping traffic moving through a fairly dense area with these buildings. The materials vocabulary was established with the original building, and it uses the waterways in a unique way that we haven't seen in other projects by creating a bridge across those waterways to actually take advantage of something that other projects have seen as something that has to be addressed in a different way. Officially called the South Dakota Public Universities and Research Center, University Center brings degree programs from 6 South Dakota universities to the Sioux Falls community. So a huge benefit to our community and something that Planning Commission loves to support. UC also supports and develops research facilities and partnerships to promote growth and commercialize research. It was also created to provide access to a quality public education with special focus on providing opportunities for non-traditional and adult learners. It has been a great success for this community, and Planning Commission enjoys highlighting something of this high quality. Thank you.
Commissioner Irwin, thank you. That's a very nice report. We will now move on to regular order, regular business, and we will start this evening with the consent agenda. Denise, if you would be good enough to read those items.
Item 1, approval of the January 8th, 2014 minutes of the regular meeting. Item 2, plats. Item 3, 2014-0105 rezone from the RS2 residential district to the RD residential district for allowed uses located east of North Pennsylvania Avenue and south of West 54th Street North. Item 4, 2014-0113 major amendment in Sub-Area A, Red Rock Park West Plan Development District to add antenna support structure and telecommunication tower as allowed uses located at 5309 East Ryan Place. Item 5, 2014-0102 conditional use permit in the C3 Central Business District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 221 South Phillips Avenue. Item 6, 2014-0106 conditional use permit in the C4 Planned Commercial District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 923 South Marion Road. Item 7, 2014-0107 conditional use permit in C2 General Commercial District to construct a telecommunications tower located at 2210 West 50th Street. Item 8, 2014-0108 conditional use permit in C2 General Commercial District to construct a telecommunications tower located at 401 North Marion Road. Item 9, 2014-0114 conditional use permit in the C3 Central Business District to allow residential on the first floor located at the northwest corner of East 14th Street and South 2nd Avenue. Item 10, 2014-01-17 conditional use permit in the I-1 Light Industrial District to construct a telecommunications tower located at 4001 West Tickman Street. Item 11, 2014-01-19 conditional use permit in the C3 Central Business District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 200 South Phillips Avenue. Item 12, 2014-01-3 special use permit in sub-area A of the Beekman Center Planned Development District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 4807 South Louise Avenue. Item 13, 2014-01-04 special use permit in sub-area G of the Tailored Planned Development District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 5002 South Marion Road. Item 14, 2014-01-12 special use permit in sub-area E, Prairie Hills South Planned Development District to allow an on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located at 6209 South Pinnacle Place. Item 15, 2014-01-18 final development plan in sub-area B, 3 Fountains Plaza Planned Development District to construct multifamily residential located at the northwest corner of West 85th Street and Southwestern Avenue. Item 16, 2014-01-11 preliminary subdivision plan for West Point Addition located south of West 85th Street and east of South Tallgrass Avenue. Item 17, 2014-01-15 design review in the Downtown Design Review District to construct a multifamily residential development located at the northwest corner of East 14th Street and South 2nd Avenue. Item 18, 2014-01-16 design review in the 49th Street Corridor Design Review District to construct an addition over 300 square feet located at 4701 West Empire Place.
Denise, thank you. Is there anyone here this evening that would like any of the items that are on the consent agenda taken off the consent agenda and put on the regular agenda? Seeing none, I would ask the commissioners, are there any items on the consent agenda that we would like placed on? Yes, Sean.
I'd like to place item number 17 on the discussion agenda and off the consent agenda for additional discussion.
All right. Is there anything else, fellow commissioners? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion in regards to the consent agenda.
So moved for approval.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion passes. We will be moving item number 17 to the regular agenda, and that will be our first order of business on the regular agenda. Folks, if you were here for consent agenda items, your presence is no longer required, and you're free to leave if you so choose. Having said that, I would look for a motion in regards to our regular agenda.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the regular agenda item, starting with item number 17, will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion passes. We'll begin the regular agenda with item number 17.
Item 17 is a 2014-01-15 design review in the Downtown Design Review District to construct a multifamily residential development located at the northwest corner of East 14th Street and South 2nd Avenue.
Hi, Diane DeCoyer with the Planning Office. As Denise just stated, this project is called The Residence. The applicant is Signature Companies, Clint Ackerman. They're requesting a design review approval for a 28-unit townhome development in downtown Sioux Falls, the corner of East 14th and South 2nd Avenue. Because it is in the design review district, the primary objective of the review district is to ensure new buildings, building additions, facade alterations, rehabilitations, and signage are compatible with the character of the district and fit with their surroundings, thereby reinforcing the visual quality of the area, preserving the property values, and supporting tourism potential of downtown. Compatibility calls for a building design which fits with its surroundings without requiring uniformity of design and without dictating specific architectural styles. The design of a building must consider the context of the site. This design review district recognizes that the overall context of downtown includes variations and is intended to allow both flexibility and creativity in devising compatible design solutions. The design committee from downtown Sioux Falls met earlier in January to review this project. Both the applicant, Clint Ackerman, and his architect were present at the meeting. Just to give you an overview, if we want to shift to the elevations, the material at the base perimeter of the townhomes will be face brick. Above the brick will be corrugated metal panel and composite panel above that. Cable railing will be used at the roof decks. All windows will be aluminum. All townhomes will have walk-ups to their individual units. Vehicle access will enter the site from the north end of South 2nd Avenue. Interior to the development and at the lower level of each townhome will be a 2-stall garage. The development is zoned C3, which allows off-site parking. In addition, at the interior of the development will be a green space located to the west. Comments that we had from agency for water, a utility plan showing how domestic water service and or fire suppression systems will be extended and constructed to the buildings is currently under review. Please note that this plan must be approved by engineering prior to any water utilities being constructed. Drainage at the site, grading and drainage will be reviewed during the plan review process. A significant redevelopment evaluation will be required to determine whether a BMP will be required here or not. Based on the intent of the 2035 comprehensive plan and the recommendation by the Downtown Sioux Falls Design Committee, staff recommends approval.
Diane, thank you. Commissioners, would there be any questions for Diane? Seeing none, thank you. Is the petitioner here?
My name is Clint Ackerman, Signature Companies. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Clint. Good to see you. Would there be any questions for Clint at this time?
Clint, this is a big undertaking at 14th, and it's really the gateway into downtown Sioux Falls from 2nd Avenue. Obviously, there's a lot of thought that goes into acquiring such a big piece of property and that has existing structures on it. And I know your architect's not here, but did you look at some historic elements, or I guess maybe the design with what downtown looks like in our historical core? This is a little bit outside the box, probably literally and figuratively, when it comes to this design review and the topography of the land and the overall look and size and scope of the project.
When we looked at the property, we did take in consideration some of the other architectural buildings downtown to try and blend into the project. You know, that's why the modular brick is kind of going to be a mimic of that red tone brick that is indicative of the downtown area. One thing we were trying to accomplish by doing this, Omaha has a similar product and Minneapolis has a similar product, is not necessarily, we want to have a harmonious looking development, but also have one that kind of stands out and sets a tone for redevelopment for the area. And we just really liked how the facade looked, and with the flat top roofs and having rooftop decks, this seemed to blend in the best with the design of the units themselves.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Clint? Clint, thank you for coming down tonight.
Yep, thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to discuss item number 17? If not, Chair would entertain a motion in regards to item number 17.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 17.
We
I'll
have
second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Sean,
Chair?
did you want to talk about this one?
Yes, I do. And I agree with Jesse. This project is greatly needed. It's a good location for a project of this sort with the kind of density that this recommends. And I know the design committee recommended approval for this. But my opinion as an architect, the appearance of this falls somewhat short of what the regulations are, and I'm glad that Diane read that portion about the primary objective is to get facade alterations, rehabilitations, new buildings, and signage that are compatible with the character of the district and fit in with their surroundings. I understand that. I know what that kind of thing means. I treat it differently as I design things, and I know Todd. I think he does a nice job on projects. I just don't feel like this particular project fits in with its surroundings at all. It actually, due to the way it's designed, it actually accentuates the vertical element, which is really not in keeping with the relatively low structures that are in that particular area. I understand that things don't need to match, but they do need to be sympathetic of their neighbors, and I think that's really the reason why we have these kinds of overlay districts, is to help to encourage designers like myself and Todd to do things that are more in keeping and yet still create something new and different that attract new people and attract things to downtown, which we all want to see. So I commend the effort in getting this closer, but I do not believe this building will fit into its area, and that's really the part that I think causes the issue. And I recognize that it does use some of the same materials, and I know what you're saying, Clint, about the north side of downtown has some similar materials on things, but I don't think that's the biggest issue here. It's really the way that it tries to fit in with its surroundings isn't very effective.
Sean, thank you for your thoughts. Would anyone else have any thoughts in regards to?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jesse.
Sean, I'm really empathetic with what you say. And Clint, I'm very familiar with the project in Omaha that you're talking about that's located, again, on the fringe of their old market area. It is unique. It does stand out. I have really mixed feelings. I'm very excited about this project from the minute I heard about it. I think there's some unique things that this brings to downtown property, residential property that we don't have now currently that we need. And so in that respect, I'm very excited. I like the security aspects of the building. I like the rooftop gardens of it. I'm not opposed to the look of it. I would agree that we're getting on the fringe of too many buildings that look like this. But overall, it's been reviewed by the design review committee. There's people with a lot more design experience that I have that sit on that committee. And until we have some real design standards set for the downtown core of Sioux Falls, I'm going to support a project like this that brings a new look and a new life and a new feel. But I certainly don't disagree with your position at all.
Thank you, Jesse. Anybody else have any thoughts or feelings in regards to item 17?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to kind of echo a little bit of what Jesse said, that I appreciate that Commissioner Irvin has a lot more experience in the design than I would ever imagine to come close to. So I have to, from my point of view, I think I have to look at what the Design Review Committee, that's made up of architects and people in the downtown area, what they say when they look at this and they approved it, which I think means that I'm going to vote in favor of it as well.
Anyone else have any thoughts? Diane, could you come back up for just a second? Is Diane still here? A final review. Will this go to City Council, or does it stop here with us?
It is, it just
Stops
stops
with
here.
us?
Yeah,
Unless someone were to appeal it?
correct. Well, no, it still wouldn't go to council, even if there was an appeal.
Non-appealable then? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Diane. Well, it's on us, guys. Buck is going to stop right here. Anyone have any other comments in regards to this? If not, we have a motion. We've had a second. We've had discussion. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed?
No.
One no vote. Thank you. Thanks for coming down, Clint.
Clint, when do you plan to start on this project?
We're hoping to break ground in the next 2 months.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to item number 19.
2014-01-10 conditional use permit in the RA2 multifamily residential district to allow an on-site parking lot located at 1714 South Spring Avenue.
Hi, Diane DeCoyer with the Planning Office. This is the existing eye clinic. They're asking for accessory on-site parking in the C2 district. The applicant is requesting on-site parking with access to Spring Avenue, coinciding with the closing of the North Avenue driveway at Minnesota. Part of the conditional use for this would require additional trees located along Spring Avenue at the front yard and provide structurally sound abutments for new parking stalls. The area that is shading there in the gray indicates what is currently grass, and that would be the accessory on-site parking with the adjacent driveway. From Jim Larson with police, their statement is that allowing the exit onto Spring Avenue may cause cars to use the lot as a way to bypass the 26th Street and Minnesota Avenue intersection and can be a danger to customers and pedestrians. Their suggestion is to not allow access to Spring Avenue. From water, a utility plan showing how domestic water service and/or fire suppression systems will be extended and constructed to the building was not provided. In some cases, water for the building addition will be provided by extension of the water service from the existing building. Please note that the plan must address water service needs prior to issuance of permits for site construction. The drainage, since the site is less than 1 acre, a post-construction BMP will not be required. City engineering, in this case, they do not oppose the access onto Spring Avenue. From a land use perspective, the on-site parking is an allowed use in this case. Based on the application for the existing land use, it is compatible with the surrounding areas, and staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit.
Would there be any questions for Diane? Diane, just a couple that I can think of. The police recommend not approving it. Does that enter into staff's thinking at all as far as when you guys recommend approval?
That is their comment. It may be their recommendation, but from engineering, their recommendation is that it would be allowed. And just a reminder that we are dealing with just the land use issue here for the on-site parking as a conditional use permit.
I think back to the one we had last week, 1914 South Spring. That was one where the fellow wanted to do something like this a year ago, and we said no. We didn't want that traffic going on to Spring. He came back, was willing to create a parking lot without access on the Spring, and we approved that.
Correct.
How is this different than that one?
Here they are asking for the access. At the last one, they did not ask for access onto Spring.
I can't speak for it, but I think if they had asked for access on Spring, we probably wouldn't have approved that in 1914, but I guess each commissioner will have to think about that themselves. Any other questions for Diane? Seeing none, is the petitioner here?
Good evening. I'm Chuck Nelson. I reside at 1301 East Cedar Lane here with my father, Wes Nelson. We own Nelson CPAs located just 2 blocks south of this address. We're entering our 87th year of business in Sioux Falls. We're second and third generation. We don't own that location, so we're moving 2 blocks south. We had the opportunity to purchase that building, so we don't see any change in traffic. There's been a concern that if there's a cut through there that there's possibly they could use that to get off Minnesota Avenue. Our plans are to restrict that access off Minnesota Avenue. The business that is just south of the south cut there, currently, right there, that business currently leases those parking spots, so their customers have been used to using that. So we are going to control the access coming off Minnesota Avenue with barricades or something to that effect at this time. And I think that'll restrict the flow going through there. We also feel that it's a safety issue to try not to go onto Minnesota Avenue, but the staff currently that is used to going onto Spring, and I think that's safer than trying to go onto Minnesota Avenue at that point. But I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have regarding that.
Chuck,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Do you plan to fence along this residential to the north and side of this addition that you're?
We are going to work. I talked to the lady that resides there, and I've talked to her, and we're going to. I told her we'd work with her. If she would like a fence, we would put a fence up there. Her lot is currently approximately 2 feet above the land where the parking lot would be. So I think at a minimum, we're going to need to do some landscape. I'm a numbers guy, not a landscape guy, but the pavers that go up, we'll at least have to put that there. I told her we'd work with her on if she wants a fence or a hedge or whatever she wants there. We'd be glad to work with her on that capacity.
And if I recall, to the south of that, it's like an investment, capital investment or
Correct.
something to that.
Yep.
And along that space as well, what were you
There
thinking?
again, if they would like a fence there, we'd be open to putting a fence there. So we just like to work with them on what, we don't want to put a fence, I mean, we're not looking at that, they are. So if they'd prefer to have a fence there, I'd be glad to put a fence there. It's just a matter of what they prefer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
You mentioned you were planning to barricade the driveway off of Minnesota.
The south access there, we're looking at those planters or something to control access. We just don't want the clients that are used to going to that one business to continue to use those parking places. So if there's an issue, we would like to try to control the access off Minnesota Avenue there.
Isn't that your only access off Minnesota then?
Yeah, there's access onto 25th Street.
Okay.
Good question. There you go, thank you. So that the 25th Street access would be the primary access in and out there. But when we have UPS trucks or the Postal Service, I don't feel it's safe for them to back up onto 25th Street. So that's another reason to allow them to go forward and access onto Spring Avenue. And that's what they're accustomed to doing at the location that we're currently at. It's kind of a loop, so they can drive through and then go onto Spring. There again, we've been at the current location for 28 years. I don't foresee any change in how our clients or our staff use Spring Avenue or that area. So,
As I review the more north entry, the apron that comes off of Minnesota, at first I thought that was an existing drive, but you're saying that that's already abandoned?
No, that is an existing drive, and that's what we're willing to give up, that drive for the access onto Spring.
Yeah,
So that's in our petition. We said that we will vacate that access to allow exit onto Spring.
That does seem awfully close to the intersection for safety.
And that's what we feel it's safer to leave or to abandon that one and then have them exit onto Spring. We just feel it's safer to do that. So
That makes sense to me.
and also there's a 25-foot setback, so we'll use landscaping and things in that area to enhance the neighborhood.
Any other questions for Mr. Nelson?
Well, Chuck, as Minnesota has gotten wider and wider, as you have experienced over the years at that location, I think there's just not a lot of room between the sidewalk and the street. It's all right there. And I think it's awfully close to 26th Street. It's not a very wide block. So I may have some reservations about the access onto Spring Avenue, but I certainly think that access on the North Minnesota Avenue is a concern for safety as well.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay,
I think
for
you
your
did
time.
a good job. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address item number 19?
Good evening. My name is Rich Lauer. I'm one of the owners of the property at 1720 South Spring, and I'm also representing the neighbors on Spring Avenue, Joyce Pope, Shannon and Ron Drake, and Julie Muller, all of whom are here this evening. A couple of thoughts. The first and most important is we're very excited about Nelson & Nelson coming into this block. They are a distinguished CPA firm in the community, and they're going to do nothing but upgrade the whole block. So we're delighted they're there. We have no objection to the parking lot on what is now just a vacant lot at the address. Our concern is the curb cut onto Spring Avenue. So just let me, as a person who has been involved at 1720 South Spring, which is on the northeast corner of Spring and 26th Street, for 18 years, to share a couple of observations. 26th and Spring is one of the high accident intersections in our community. It has 5 to 6 accidents a year that are reported to the police. And we can tell you from the tires screeching and the bangs that we hear at our corner that there are several accidents every year that are not reported to the police. The traffic on Spring Avenue has been increasing over this 18-year span, and the speeds are increasing. As Minnesota Avenue becomes more congested, people seek to avoid that by going down Spring Avenue. Our collective concern is, I say, not the parking lot, but the curb cut providing access to Spring Avenue. We share the same concern that the police department does. If you could put the original there. I'm a little confused as to whether the south entrance, which Mr. Nelson said they were going to put up some barricades or barriers, are you going to be able to get into the parking lot off of Minnesota Avenue through that entrance? If you are, then it's a straight shot over to Spring Avenue. And here's what's going to happen. As people are on Minnesota Avenue going south, and they look ahead to the congestion on 26th and Minnesota, and they say, I need to get over to 26th Street so I can go west, I'll just cut through and shoot through and get to Spring, make a left turn, a right turn, and I'll be on 26th Street. I would tell you that sitting in my office on the second floor at 1720 South Spring and looking out towards 26th Street, at about 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, the traffic begins to back up, and backs up 3, 4, 5 blocks sometimes. So 26th Street is a traffic issue, and when people come south on Minnesota, they're going to see that. And some will make a bad but quick decision to cut through this lot and shoot straight across and exit on Spring. There's also the reverse of that, and that is someone that wants to get to Minnesota and is coming south on Spring Avenue, sees the traffic backed up 3 or 4 blocks on Spring Avenue up to Minnesota, and says, I'm never going to be able to get up there. I'll just cut through this parking lot, go east, and exit on Minnesota. And what'll happen is, in their mind, is they'll get up to that point and some kind person will let them in onto Minnesota, and they'll be on their way and avoid the congestion of 26th Street. There's another issue, and that is the parking on Spring Avenue is currently on the east side of the street. And if you put a curb cut in and allow access onto Spring, you're going to have people parked on both sides of that curb cut. Spring is a narrow street. As I say, the traffic's increasing, the speed is increasing, and it's going to be dangerous coming out of that curb cut, trying to see if the Spring Avenue is clear to go in either north or south on Spring Avenue. We've been told that the reason for the parking in this area is overflow for the Nelson's business. And their representative visited with me the other day and suggested that it would basically only be used as parking during the 3 months of the year when their tax season is at its height. And obviously, if that's overflow parking during their busy season, it's going to be used by their employees, not their clients. The employees will be asked to park furthest from the building. At least you would assume that. So our concern is that this is a parking lot that maybe has use or utility 3 months out of the year, but the danger to pedestrians and vehicular traffic because of the potential shoot-through from Minnesota to Spring exists 12 months out of the year, and that's our concern. If the curb cut is determined, you decide to allow it, then we would ask to have permanent barriers put up between the what is now the grassy area and the existing parking lot. Yeah, right along there. Put barriers up there so that traffic could not traverse from Minnesota to Spring Avenue. It won't create a problem for the employees that are in the overflow lot. They're going to have to walk to the office in any event. So put permanent barriers up there if you must have access onto Spring Avenue from that parking lot. But our concern is a safety issue, and it's one that's shared by the police department. There's another issue which I don't know, I haven't visited with Chuck Nelson, but there's the issue of what do you do with your snow in the winter, and if you don't have the curb cut, you'll have a place to pile up the snow in the parking lot. If the curb cut is not allowed, we would hope they would plant perhaps 3 trees along that parking. That would create a visual barrier for the folks in the residential area on the west side of Spring Avenue and make it a more attractive area and help preserve the residential nature of Spring Avenue. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Would there be any questions for Rich?
Rich, you're saying that the only street parking is on the east side then?
That is correct.
Okay.
Same size as the curb cut, proposed curb cut.
Rich, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Was there anyone else here this evening that wanted to address item number 19? Rich mentioned that he was speaking for a number of neighbors there. Could I see a show of hands of the neighbors that Rich was speaking for? Thank you. Anyone else wanting to, Jeff, did you want to?
I just figured I'd answer some questions for planning commissioners and any of the citizens in the audience. This is a challenging one. I mean, I can see that you guys have had precedent. You've done some things on Minnesota Avenue and Spring in the past. But at the same time, you can check with the neighbors again and the applicant. It's already kind of been addressed where the spokesperson and the neighbors have said they're not opposed to the land use, but they are concerned about the traffic impacts. So if you were the traffic engineer, you'd be able to control that traffic aspect and control that. But the only thing that you're able to do tonight is look at the land use. And if you think it's an appropriate land use, you should approve it. If you don't, you should deny it. And again, the neighbors are saying that they're fine with the land use. They just have some concerns about the traffic impacts. So,
Jeff, before you sit down, do you have a picture of an overhead of an area like that? Or do we have a picture like that?
yes.
Look to the block on both sides of that. Is there any access on any of these other? I noticed this building to the north, that's a rather large parking lot
Yep.
there.
You can see it about halfway down the block.
From there on to Spring? I don't think there is as I look at it. Is there?
It looks like there's one halfway down the block on Spring, but I can't tell for sure.
How about to the north? And I mean, my point is, it seems like when we set a precedent, if we say yes, and I guess I'm not saying it's wrong, but if one of these other parking lots say, well, golly, I want my access on the, so I guess we
Right.
deal with that at the time? Or?
But you don't get to deal with that, is my point. You never get to approve. If you stand up here tonight and say you do not get access to that location, it doesn't matter because you never get to approve access. You can say here tonight you're going to approve the access and you don't approve the access. You have no authority over their access points. The only thing you can decide tonight is this a good location for a parking lot?
And Jeff, is there any opportunity to meet again with the traffic engineer for these neighbors? Because again, that's all traffic engineering, has
Right.
nothing to do with us.
Correct.
That they could maybe meet with Mr. Nelson, and because again, it's not going to go any further than this. We're here to decide if a parking lot makes sense there.
Correct. And again, what I heard tonight, again, and I think what Rich is bringing up too, Mr. Lauer's bringing up is good points. There shouldn't be cut-through traffic if they're not going to have access to Minnesota Avenue. So they're moving that north access point, that one's coming off, and they're talking about controlling and putting some barriers to the south. So at that point, it's not like there's a convenience point where people are going to come down and go, oh, look, there's the straight shot. It's not a realistic aspect. It may happen. There's going to be people that go on to Spring, but it's not a direct shot. And that's the conversation they can have offline with the engineer. But again, you don't address the traffic flow and you don't address the access points. You're just looking at that gray spot on, is that a correct location to have a parking lot? Which is what, Kenny, you've set precedent already and before in other locations, and you say you either agree that there are places for parking lots or there are not.
Well, I go back to the one we had last month and the year before. The reason we denied him was because of his access.
But then now you have to have that vote again tonight, and so bring it to the vote of the land use. And
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Jeff?
So then if Mr. Lauer wants to talk to somebody about the access to Spring, he should contact who?
the traffic engineer, Heath Hofstetter.
Okay.
Yep. And again, because I don't know if they have the access approved or not, it's not really in our preview on if they have the access approved or not. But it would be the traffic engineer, Heath.
That probably is information we should get to him so he can make that contact.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
And it's the same in the previous one up north with the Bagel Boys shop. We didn't know if they had access or not. And
Pardon?
with the previous point, Kenny, that you're bringing up with the Bagel Boy, we didn't approve or deny access up there either. That would have been with the traffic engineer.
That's right. It was whether that made sense to run that parking lot
All the
next
way-
to that residential property there. It was, at this conversation a month ago was not about access.
It was about next to the single-family houses.
But I think the year before it was about access.
But it's not tonight. Tonight is about the parking lot, land use, and you know, that's what makes dealing within the zoning ordinances that we have today somewhat of a challenge, Kenny. How we operate our businesses today is different than how we operated them 30 years ago, and we are still operating under the plan that we had 30 years ago. So that's what we have to deal with tonight, and this is strictly a land use conversation. And does this make sense to allow a parking lot at this location? As you can see, if you get that bigger blown up picture, there are lots of parking lots that run from Minnesota to Spring Avenue, up and down, all the way up and down Minnesota Avenue. So I get that there's some sensitivity, and I certainly will not come down one side or the other, but I would encourage the neighbors to pursue it to traffic engineering, because I too have been down Spring Avenue many a time and am very empathetic to what I see happening there. But I think we have very skilled traffic engineers, and that's their job, and land use is our job.
You know, I might look at it a little different. I look at it as planning. We're a planning commission. And when I look at these things, I ask, is that good planning? And Jeff and I have had this conversation about land use, and we talk about it a lot. And it brings up a point, maybe we should be the land use commission versus a planning commission. But that's the only point I would make. I think everybody would have to ask, is this good planning? And now, having said that, I don't know. Any other comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman. So we've kind of guided those with concerns about this use towards traffic engineering. Now, my question, maybe it's to staff, yourself, Jeff, or someone on the staff, is there an appeal process for traffic engineering, or are they the last word? They say we can put a cutout there and that's that.
Interesting question. I don't think there's an appeal process to that, because it's an engineering discussion, it's an engineering analysis. And so when they engineer it, if it meets the traffic volumes, if there's too much turning movement, if it's going to create a conflict, they will not allow it. Not an engineer, okay? The engineers, if it doesn't work and if it creates problems and too much flow, they will not approve it. If they analyze it and they say it functions, it's going to be approved. So the appeal process at that point is, yeah, but we don't like it. It doesn't work too well with the engineers. They go, well, it functions. So there's not an appeal process to that.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Yep.
It just isn't.
Sure.
It doesn't clarify to me if they make a cutout and it gets used as an expressway, can they take it back?
Yes, they could, because at that point, if the engineers approve it and it goes in there and it starts to function differently than they thought that it was going to, and it creates a problem, if there's accidents there, engineering would come back and they'd close it. But that's not how, they're going to analyze it right now and go, well, based upon how we project the volume's going to be there. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Rich, you have one more thing to say?
I have a question. We received, as you understand, a notice to come to this meeting because there was a conditional use permit process. I guess we're not sure what we would do in terms of engineering, or what is the protocol for that. And I'm also confused, is this process to approve this vacant lot for parking, or is it to approve a vacant lot with also a curb cut? I mean, you understand our concerns in terms of having the curb cut, but what do we as citizens, where are we supposed to go? I would say if this is not the venue, which we were invited to come to, then where do we turn and where do we go to express our concerns?
Very good question, Rick. I'm going to ask Jeff to come up and comment on that.
Don't go too far, Mr. Lauer. Okay. That is what Jesse was trying to explain, and I'm trying to explain it. It does get very confusing. These conditional uses of the 20 that we had on the agenda tonight, including this one, the conditional uses are to allow land uses on land. We don't even approve the site plan tonight. What he's showing there, and I could count, what do you see, maybe 7 parking spots and a driveway and a couple of, we don't approve that. All they're doing is saying, is this a proper location to approve this use with conditions? Therefore, you have a conditional use. But they're not approving parking spaces. They're not approving the grade of the lot or how much asphalt's there or where the curb cuts are or the side. That all gets covered by building permits and engineering and traffic. All this body does is look at the land use and says, is this a good place to have a parking lot? Yes or no? With conditions.
Okay, then as to the other concerns then, grade and curb cuts.
Come on up to
we
the-
don't care what the grade is, but
Come up to the microphone.
then to the other concerns which you just enumerated, ours, the only one being the curb cut, we're not sure, don't care what the elevation is. But what is the process that as citizens we're supposed to use to appropriately express our concerns?
I think you're doing it, if I can be so bold. Jeff is saying no.
No.
Were they invited down here tonight, or weren't they, Jeff?
Well, I think it's posted, Kenny,
Yeah.
and they get in.
They were, Kenny,
letter.
but you know and you understand they can't change the grading. If Mr. Lauer wants to talk, that's not in your preview either. So,
I think he's worried about the
yes,
grading.
no,
Right?
but the issues that you're raising, the issues that he's asking here is where do they get to talk about those things? They don't. They don't get to talk about the traffic engineering or the speed on Spring Avenue or how much volumes of traffic. All they have for a public hearing is this conditional use on this land use. All those other things, whether it be drainage or grade or how much asphalt is on the lot or what the striping is or the color, those are all by law, and they've already been approved and adopted, and there isn't the public process for that. That's done. Right?
As much as we may not like it.
Right.
And we want to change it, conditional uses fit certain things. And parking lots are one of those things that are allowed under conditional use permits. And I'm very empathetic, and I so appreciate the frustration that they are probably feeling. I do feel that they have a process, and it's certainly to meet with engineering, but
I would
this
think
is
a
more of an
process.
advisory capacity on
I
this.
think a process is here. I think whether it passes or fails, it's a conditional use permit. Unless appealed, it's final here. And each side has a certain number of days to appeal our decision. Our decision then goes to the city council. And you can have the same discussion you're having with us tonight. And what I've discovered over the years is they have a bit more flexibility than we have. They can,
Kenny, just to clarify, conditional use does not go to city council.
if appealed?
Upon appeal, if it's
Appeal.
appealed.
No, I thought that's what I said. If it's approved or failed, either side can appeal it. It then goes to city council. They'd have an opportunity to visit at city council about it. Yes, I'd let him speak again. Come on up, Chuck.
I'm sorry, I know this has gone on. Just a couple things. One is that there has been quite a few parking lots that access onto Spring Avenue. If you look at starting down 41st Street with the Lewis Drug and then behind Billion Motors, behind Crowbar, the valet cleaners, those have access. The strip mall at Southway, I think it's called Southway, by CoTrust there. Wells Fargo has access on there. Going north to 22nd Street, the Dakota Care, the old Dakota Care building, there's a parking lot in the northwest corner there. They have access onto Spring, as well as there's a car dealership, can't think of the name of it, right up there almost to 18th Street. So there is precedence for parking lots having access onto Spring. The other concern about people cutting through, with our building, and I agree the building is up against the sidewalk, if I could pick up that building and move it back, I would. But that's where the building is. But the way that building is situated, I don't think line of sight is going to, say, here's a big alleyway, come drive through. The other thing is that when people get that close to 26th Street, are they really going to try to cut? If the cars are all backed up, there's one car possibly sitting at that driveway, and that's what it was concerned, and we're still planning on trying to barricade that. But if the concern is going into that south access and the cars are backed up, there's one car that's going, if that car is going to go west on 26th Street, that's the one car that's going to be able to go through. If the cars are moving, I don't feel a reasonable driver, and there's some issues on reasonable drivers in Sioux Falls, but I don't think a reasonable driver is going to try to cut through there when they only have a few more feet to get to 26th Street and make a nice right-hand turn and go west on 26. So I think that the amount of people, if that south cut was open, I just have a hard time believing there's going to be that many people that are going to want to use that when they only have a few more feet to get to 26th Street. So there are a number of up and down Minnesota Avenue. There are a number of venues where you can do that. I don't think there's any of them that close to a stoplight where if there's going to be somebody making a right-hand turn on 26th Street, I think they're going to make an easier turn going down to the corner than cutting through. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
This time I'd like to make a motion to approve for discussion.
Didn't we already do that?
No. I'll
We have a
second.
motion. We have a second. Discussion.
From what I've heard, I'm starting to lean to the fact I think this will be self-regulating. I don't think there's, as a West Sider, I'd like to think there's a lot of folks using that heading west, but I'm inclined to believe it's not going to be a steady flow through there. And if problems arise, if a cutout is approved by another group, it'll self-regulate and will have to be closed if it causes a problem.
And Mr. Chair, I would agree with Kurt. I also would like to encourage them to go down and talk to traffic engineering. I hope that they do so and get their questions answered. But as far as a land use goes, I feel like we need to approve this as well. The question I have, can we put a stipulation to give the neighbors the assurance that that south curb cut will have those barricades? We can't do that. We can do that.
I think it's a conditional use permit. I think it can be approved with conditions, if I'm not mistaken.
I just want to give them the assurance that they're going to receive the barricade that he has talked about, and hopefully will prevent that direct traffic flow.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Nick.
Not a traffic engineer, nor did I stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And I think is kind of what we talked about on the previous regular agenda item is that these things are best left up to the professionals that understand more about it than I do.
I agree.
So I think I'm going to vote for approval on this one because I need to defer to their expertise as to whether it makes sense to have that cutout on the spring or not.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, Nick. A lot of the reason why we have these regulations, since I deal with them every day, is it allows the property owner to have some flexibility on how they use their own property. And that's very much the way that our laws are set up, and that's why this commission just deals with land use and not these other specific things, because there are laws in place to allow property owners to do what's right. Now, if property owners decide, hey, to be a good neighbor, I'm going to do this extra thing, whether it's put up barricades there or put up 2 do not enter signs on either side of that entrance to make it really obvious to anybody pulling up that we don't want you coming in this way, that's their choice and how they want to do that and help to regulate that. But beyond that, I think our decision is about land use and really, with some of the other decisions that have been made, this seems appropriate for this particular piece of land.
Jesse, did you have something you wanted to say?
I think the most disturbing thing I heard is that Mr. Lauer has been at that property 18 years, because I remember when he went in, and it could not have been 18 years ago. So
Well-
I would have to agree. Sean was much more eloquent in his argument than I was, but
Well, we've had a good discussion. I think, neighbors, you can kind of see where what their thought process is. Once again, I would say, you know, if you wanted another voice about it, you could certainly take this to council and have them take a look at it also. But having said that, I better ask for a vote before we do. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. That was item number
19?
19, and I think there's an item 20. but I
Yes,
don't
sir.
have it.
Item 20 is election of officers.
It's election time already? Would
yes.
anyone have a motion for election of officers for the coming year?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Jesse.
I would like to put a motion forward to have Nick Scherson as our chair and Andy as our vice chair for the next year.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Time for discussion.
All good.
Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Congratulations, Nick. Congratulations, Andy.
Thank you, Ken.
Being no further
Adjourned?
business, this meeting is adjourned.